Hello there, welcome to our channel. Now, we've all been there where we've had an absolute nightmare with the washing machine. You've put a shirt through the wash, maybe with something else, or maybe on too hot a wash, and it's damaged the sponsor, or the sleeve patch has come off, or something along those lines. But without a doubt, the worst nightmare you can have with a washing machine is this: the name set smear. Paint everywhere it shouldn't be, damage to the front and back. What a nightmare. So, by the end of this video, we're going to show you how to get your shirt from this to this in just a few simple steps. And we've used this method on hundreds of different shirts. And as a friend of mine always says, 90% of the time, it works all the time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
So we're going to take you through how to do that. But before we do that, let me just tell you about this shirt. This shirt is without a doubt my most favourite Arsenal shirt, the Bruised Banana, the away shirt from 1992-93, the first Premier League season. And as you may know, I'm trying to collect all of the shirts from that season. Now, when I look at this shirt, I think of Ian Wright, I think of Rocky Rocastle, I think of us being relatively, or Arsenal being a relatively mediocre side, but it was a true classic. At the time, people didn't really like it because it was a bit brash, but now it's an all-time classic and has gone on to be the influence for a number of other shirts. And not only is this shirt my favourite because, look at it, it's brilliant, but also because my beautiful sister, she found it in a charity shop, £9.50. This is, without a doubt, the biggest bargain I've ever got. And actually, there was a competition on Twitter, either last year or the year before, with the Charity Football Shirts Finds page. Fantastic page, go and give it a follow. And they did a knockout tournament of all the different shirts. And this, unfortunately, lost in the final to the Ajax 89 away shirt that actually, there's a video there about if you want to watch it. It was a worthy second and without a doubt, like I say, my favourite Arsenal shirt. Without further ado, I'm going to be taking you over to the board to show you how we're going to fix the Valencia shirt. Here we are over here on the bench. Now, for a removal like this, it's quite complex. There's a few different stages to it. So make sure you watch through each of the stages to make sure you don't miss any of the details, because they're all equally important. Now, the first stage for this is to remove the colour. See this orange here? This is the paint. This is what's likely to stain the shirt if you start smearing it around. You can see underneath there's like a hardened adhesive. We'll come to that in a second. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go round and we're going to remove the colour. So what do we need for this? We need the board, we need a shirt, we need the light box. We're going to need some of our trusty VLR, some cotton pads, something to put the debris in, and one of our magic scrapers. If you want one of these, drop us a note and we can sort you out a set. Now, we're going to, as always, apply the VLR to the back of the colour. So we're on the number 8, and let's lay it over the light box. So you can see, here's the 8, and we're going to generously apply some VLR. Now, as I've talked about before, VLR evaporates quite quickly. So the key to success here is to get it so it's long enough for it to sit on the name set that you're trying to remove, but not so long that it's evaporated entirely. And I reckon, depending on the heat and the temperature and humidity of the room, about 20 seconds or so. Here we go. We have now applied it, and we've applied it to this bit here. So we're going to lay this over, and then with the scraper, we're going to, what I do with the scraper, just in case, because some people have struggled a bit with the scraper, rather than using the flat edge, I use a little bit of a corner. So it gives it a little bit of a sharpness. So with a corner, I'm going to go round and I'm going to scrape off the top layer of this name set. And you can see it's coming away quite nicely. So the colour coming off, it's leaving behind a residue. But like I say, that's the next stage, and we'll get to that in a minute. You've got to make sure you keep wiping your scraper. I forgot to say, have some kitchen roll. so you can wipe your scraper. But you go round and we're going to remove as much of the colour as possible. And then we've got to try and either blow the debris onto the floor, not if you're using carpet, because then it'll stain it. Luckily, we've got hard floor in here. I'm going to try and get as much of it off the shirt as possible. Here we go. Go around and do that. Now, I don't know if you can see, but the orange is pretty much all gone from here. So I'm going to go around, finish taking that bit off, and then we'll move on to the next bit. So here we go. First stage is done. As you can see, pretty much all of the orange is off. And if you look at that, I mean, it's full of a nasty, sticky paint. But that's the first stage that kind of had to be done. Now, the next stage is all about trying to get rid of this hardened adhesive. Now, when you've used the VLR in the first step, before you move to the second step, you need to make sure that it's kind of dried. It's no longer sticky and horrible. Otherwise, it will smear everywhere. Now, I'm going to clear this bit. The rest of it's still a little bit wet, but this bit has dried. You can feel that it's a bit harder. Now, you might be that by using the VLR, you get rid of all the residue. So you get it to like that. And then if that's the case, brilliant, that you steps 1 and 2 are kind of molded in together. But for this particular shirt, we need to start using some of this, the isopropyl alcohol. This is good for this hardened adhesive. It takes a little bit longer to evaporate. And you can use it a little bit more liberally, so it's certainly a lot cheaper than VLR, but it's perfect for this thicker adhesive. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply some to the back of the residue. So that is around about here. So let's give it a good spray. And we're also going to apply it to the front of it. Now, like I say, the VLR starts working very quickly after having applied it, whereas the alcohol, it takes a little bit longer. So I reckon we leave that for about 30 seconds to a minute or so to start working on the adhesive and also to kind of start evaporating a little bit. I'll give the scraper a little wipe to make sure it's clean so that you don't smear anything onto the shirt. And something else to be aware of when you're doing a shirt or a number, you've got to be careful not to smear it around. So as you get to the edges of a number, you might want to turn it round and start pulling into the number rather than pulling it away from the number, if that makes sense. But it's up to you. That's just a trick that I find works for me. So what we're going to do now is with the scraper, the corner of the scraper, we're now going to start working on this next bit. And you can see, look, it's coming off quite thick. So let's just go around. You can see it's wet because the alcohol hasn't evaporated yet. You'll know when the alcohol has started to evaporate because it'll thicken up and be a little bit less wet. And that's fine to still work on it. But for the minute, it's still quite wet. So you need to keep wiping your scraper regularly. Now, I can see it's starting to evaporate because what's coming up now is a little less wet, still quite thick, but it's a little less wet, and therefore the alcohol has started to evaporate. So I'm going to keep going with this, and I'll be back to you in a few moments. So the alcohol was now evaporated and it's dried, and what you see, we've started on this portion here. If you compare this to this, you can see it's taken off a fair amount, a load more of this sticky gunk. And even up here, we started to see a lot more of the material. So that's taken 5 or 6 minutes and it's evaporated now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little bit more alcohol to the front directly onto the portion that we're doing, and then I'm going to carry on scraping away, and then I'll see you in a second. So round 2, we can see now it's doing very well. And it shows just how thick this nasty stuff is. But second round of alcohol to the front, and we've got it to this point, still using the scraper. So it's all on another bit. And hopefully this will be the last application of alcohol that we'll need before we then move on to the next step. So I'm going to give it another go with the scraper. So here we go. We've got it down to this stage now. And I always say you use your scraper until there's kind of like 90% of the adhesive is off. And then the last bit, we're going to use our microfiber cloth. And we're just going to start giving it a rub. And what we should see is that it just comes off nicely. So I'm going to go through with the microfiber cloth and finish off this bit, and then I'll be back. So there you go. We are now at a stage where, look at that, it looks pretty good compared to what it was like with the alcohol. We finished off with giving it a rub with our microfiber cloth, and we're now back to pretty clean material. Now I'm going to have to go round and do all of that. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the name. Now, old Jonesy, that looks like that is probably pretty similar to that. Now, typically for vinyl, like I say, you would have tried VLR, but for this one I'm going to give it a go with some alcohol front and back, because that should work in the same way that it has on the number. So let's do a bit on the back. There is the S. Let's give it a spray on the back, and then we're going to put it over our board, give it a spray on the front, give it a minute or so for the 30 seconds for the alcohol to kind of start doing its job. We've got to be careful with this down here. We don't want it to smear everywhere. But what this will do is this will get the name set off. So then what I will do is I will go round, remove it all, and then we'll be left with these smear stains, which is the third portion of the removal process, the smear stains. How do we get those smear stains off? So, but before we get to that, let's just give it a go with the scraper. And yeah, in the same way that it was working with the number, unsurprisingly, it's coming off nicely with the letters. And I always find that the removal of the letters is a lot easier than the numbers. I don't know whether you find that as well, but I'm going to go through, finish off this letter, and then show you it when it's done. And there you have it. The S is well and truly gone. So alcohol to the front, use a scraper, and that is the second portion. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through, remove all of this, remove all the letters, and then we're going to work on this. So make sure you stay to the end so learn how to get rid of these smear stains. See you in a sec. So as you can see, the name and the number is now pretty much off, which is good. The last bit we have to worry about now is these smear marks, and they're slightly different to just the adhesive that we've kind of gone through. So what I find best to remove those is, you probably guessed it, spot solve. So we're gonna spray a bit directly onto it, use a cotton pad. I mean, it's a solvent based spot cleaner, so you've got to be a little bit careful with it because it will still leave solvent marks. But if we now just use our cotton pad and go over, I don't know if you can see, but already it's just eating through the stain, making very short work of that. There we go. So where there was a stain, there is now no stain. So spot solved there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, remove the rest of the stains, and then we'll show you the finished article. And here we have it, the finished article. Other than a little bit of wrinkles in the shirt from using the scraper, that is totally clean, ready for a new name set to go on. So never again do you have to worry about something having a paint smear disaster from the washing machine, because you know how to fix it. We went for VLR first, get rid of all the colour as much as possible. If it doesn't get rid of the adhesive underneath, then we used alcohol front and back, used the scraper to get rid of it, and then those horrible smear marks that you saw dotted all around the shirt, the secret sauce to those was our spot solve. So if you like what you've seen here, please remember to like and subscribe. Any questions underneath? And if you've liked this video, you're going to love this video, which is where we colour the collar, restore the colour in a collar using some of our magic pens. So check this one out and check this one, which is last week's video.